the incorporation of medically based treatments in a relaxing spa environment might seem like the natural foundation for a solid business plan. But such a thing did not exist until Natalie Tessler used her creativity, energy, and entrepreneurial drive to create Spa Space. Like many entrepreneurs, Tessler has seen her vision through numerous obstacles and now faces the challenge of running her own small business in today's competitive economy.
I was practicing law after having gone to law school and completing a master's degree in tax law. And I quite honestly went through all those years of school knowing that I wasn't going to be a long-term attorney, that I always wanted to start my own business and that eventually I would do that. As a child, I always was dreaming up different business ideas. And then once I became a working professional, and it became clear that I wanted to head down a different path and start my own business, I was sort of in that position of, well, what kind of business? And I think that's something that entrepreneurs come across a lot. They know they want to start something, but they just don't know exactly what they want to start. So for me, I just really did a lot of soul searching, and I tried to focus inward on what is it that I really enjoy doing, what am I good at outside of work. And for me, it was hospitality, it was taking care of people, it was entertaining. I knew I wanted to be in customer service. I wanted to interact with people and different people on a daily basis as my job. So I started looking into the different possible fields that would involve utilizing those interests, and found myself at a spa in Arizona, a destination spa, and thought, well, perhaps these services could benefit people like myself being offered on a daily basis in an urban area. My father is a dermatologist, and I had spent many summers growing up working in his office. And one thing that was really different from going to a dermatologist's office for a facial versus going to a sort of typical day spa for a facial was the kind of frou-frou-ness or fluffiness of a facial received in a spa setting. And I always felt much more comfortable in the clinical medical setting receiving skincare because I felt like they knew what they were doing more. They were much more informed and careful about sanitation and taking care of the implements, and I thought perhaps there were a lot of other people who would feel that way as well. And so the idea for Spa Space was to incorporate that sort of approach into a more relaxing, nurturing environment than you classically see in a doctor's office. Well, once I decided to leave the practice of law, I started to really focus on writing a business plan and getting started, spending all of my time and using that fear of not having an income to propel me forward and to get busy. And I mean, I would get up at the crack of dawn, which I never did as an attorney. I had so much energy, I found. And I would wake up and I would just research, my brain out, and I would go to the library and I would visit some spas as part of my research. So there was some fun involved. But basically I learned as much as I possibly could about the industry. Once I completed the business plan, I needed to go out and raise capital. And for me, I knew that was going to mean finding investors. Banks had basically flat out told me that unless you have an equal amount of capital to the amount that you want to borrow and you're prepared to put that in the bank, they won't lend you any money. And I thought to myself, well, if I had that money, I wouldn't need to borrow. When we first opened, it was very slow going. We sat there waiting for the phones to ring. I had about 18 employees, most of whom were commission only, so that helped in terms of not draining the reserves, the cash reserves too much. But I definitely did have hourly people working, and it was scary at first. But gradually, especially around holiday time that year of 2001, we started to sell out gift certificates and things started to build, and that created ongoing business into the beginning of the year. And fortunately, it's been very successful. We've grown quite steadily over the last 5 years. We now employ almost 70 individuals, and we recently completed an expansion where we enlarged our space by about 50%. I kind of do it all at Spa Space. I, especially in the beginning, answered the phones, cleaned up the space, was always making sure everything looked good. I still do that to this day. I do payroll, I do the accounting, I do hiring and training, I write the menus, I develop the website, I hire all the vendors, I determine where the products and supplies are going to come from and negotiate pricing. I do everything, and that really is what being an entrepreneur is all about. It is not glamorous, and some of my friends think, oh, you own a spa, or I meet somebody and what do you do? I own a spa, and they think, oh, what a glamorous life. But I've literally been on the floor of the mechanical room underneath the hot water heater trying to get it to relight so that the pedicures would have warm water. It's not glamorous at all. It's very much getting your hands dirty and getting in there and being willing to do absolutely anything to see the business succeed.
With the key ingredients of passion, a marketable idea, and a good deal of ingenuity, Natalie Tessler has made her entrepreneurial dream a reality. Together with a strong business plan and solid funding, Spa Space has a strong foundation to grow into the future.
I'm most proud of having had the courage to follow my dream. I see many, many people, and I talk to many, many people who are kind of stuck in a place where they're not happy, and they're working somewhere where they are unfulfilled. And I'm most proud of the fact that I chose not to live my life that way, that I took a chance on myself, and for better or for worse, I'm living the life that I want to live.